And thank you, Emma, for coming along tonight. We don't have any apologies. We're all here this evening. Do any members have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare on the agenda items tonight? No, thank you. The minutes. We need to receive and approve the minutes of the last full council. Would a councillor like to propose these minutes if there are no comments on them already, please? Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. And everybody agreed? Thank you. And then if we could receive the other minutes for firstly the Planning, Highways and Environment Committee on the 14th of July. Is everybody happy with those? Yes. Because receiving, we just need to acknowledge it, don't we, Jill?
I mean, you can do them as a group if everybody's happy with all three, because they've obviously been approved by the committee.
All right, we'll do them.
Yeah,
yes,
they can
that's
receive.
what I was thinking. Yes, we'll do them in bulk. Yeah. Is everybody happy with them? Yes. All right. Thank you, Matthew. You okay with them? Good. Yeah. Thank you.
So,
David?
sorry, I'm just checking. I think it was Councillor Pennington proposing we received them all, and that okay. Who's seconding?
Yeah, my mistake.
Thank you, Councillor Wallin. Okay.
I know that one by now.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And at the chairman's report, remembrance. Hopefully, this will still include some wreath laying on Sunday. According to our clerk, the terrorism threat has rocketed, so that may produce some guidance that no wreaths will be laid this Sunday, which would be a real shame. Well, more than that. However, the town has been decorated by Lorraine and Richard Hambidge, and a lot of the residents have contributed poppies, mostly from the group Westgate Community Spirit, and especially Bet Francis, who produced about 400 poppies, and Anne Walker, who Lorraine said she lost count with what she's produced, and a lot of them she doesn't know because they were just put through her letterbox. And you will see them on the trees outside. There's some lovely displays in the town council window. So thank you very much to everybody. And if the wreath laying does go ahead, I hope that people will respect the guidance from the government and gain some comfort from the fact that we're going to record any wreath laying, which will be on our social media. And know that the spirit of remembrance is very strong within the community. Calc, yes, Calc training has increased hugely recently, and there's a lot of information in your packs this month about Calc as itself, which is actually one of the best local associations in the county. They're very supportive, and it's important that we log in and we keep up to date with all the information that comes from our, how would you describe them, Jill? Our sort of parent body? Calc?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So they're a county association. Yes.
Yes. And out of, well, 320 parish and town councils, 97% are members, 312. So, and in Thanet, all 10 parish and town councils are members of the association. And that's all I've really got to say this time. We've got quite a few reports from councillors, but first of all, Emma.
Oh, thank you.
Dawson, County Councillor, thank you.
Thank you. I won't be too long because I know that you need to get through your meeting. I just wanted to sort of just clarify, you know, we all had an email from Mr. Lafford regarding the puffing crossing for outside the Ursuline School. You know, we do understand where he's coming from, and his idea was really great. But when you look into it more deeply, the sight lines just aren't as accurate as they are on that brow. And so KCC do not want to have any accidents due to putting it in the slightly wrong place. I mean, he had a great idea, but it really can't go where he wants it to go. I mean, it has to go on that brow where they placed it. There hasn't been a lot of complaints via the consultation either. The consultation was, you know, it sort of really did lean in the majority of people wanting that crossing, even though, you know, Hengist Road you can't turn right out of, which Mr. Lafford really wanted to do. And he also said that, you know, there might be some build-up of traffic. But again, the traffic survey was carried out just before the lockdown, and there wasn't many traffic, many cars going up Hengist Road. And on the JTB in December, the consultation will be, you know, it will actually be set and we can actually look at it there. But as it stands, the crossing is going to be put, you know, outside Hengist Road. It's going to be put there. It's not going to change. That is where it's going to go, and it's for the safety of the children. So anyway, so that was that. So that's what I just wanted to reiterate. The other thing, of course, was the library closure or not opening in Westgate. I did speak to KCC. I did try to, you know, ask them why Westgate, why Birchington, but they did say that Birchington is a 2-tier library and Westgate is a 3-tier library. So that means that more people are using Birchington, plus they have partners that use that building as well, so it was very difficult for them to keep that one shut. There's, you know, financial difficulties as well with Kent County Council. They have to look at all areas, and I understand that people want to use the libraries, but they did say that there are 5 libraries open in Thanet, Broadstairs, Margate, Ramsgate, Cliftonville and Birchington. 33 libraries are open in Kent for residents, as well as the mobile library service, home library service, postal loan collections and KCC virtual offers. So they are trying to provide everyone with something. It's not ideal at the moment, but I think we're just going to have to go with that one for the moment, until, you know, we've got a lockdown now. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was the Christmas lights for Westgate. I'm so glad that we've got that sorted out. So the 2,000 community grant funding will go to the twinkle lights for Westgate, and then the repair will go towards the existing lights by the town council. And that's what we decided to do. Okay, many thanks. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dawson. Thank you for coming tonight and explaining all those issues. Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Page.
Joanna, is it okay if you haven't got any questions for me, is it okay if I leave the meeting? Or do you
think Councillor Page might have a question for you.
Okay.
Could you just a second? Thank you, Councillor Page.
Thank you. Councillor Dawson, I just wanted to go back to the library. I've had a couple of residents approaching me in the last few weeks. They're concerned that the library may not open again, and they were wondering if you possibly may have some kind of timeline on when it may be planned to reopen it. I know we're in the middle of a second lockdown in the next day or so, but if it's possible to try and ascertain whether there is a plan to reopen, so that we can really reassure people that it's not closed for good. And also they're concerned about the building actually going into further disrepair. So we wondered if there are ongoing measures for maintenance whilst it's closed, in terms of the building internally, externally, and things like pipes, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll find out about that for you, and I'll get back to the town clerk, and she can put the email around to everybody.
Thanks, Emma, and good night, and thank you for popping by.
Before
Jill,
I've actually found out the answers to those questions.
Oh, sorry, Jill.
Okay. The heating has been turned down, but it is still on, so the books will not suffer any adverse effects, because it won't be damp. It's actually the heating is on. Also, there are officers regularly attending, checking on the pipes, doing the Legionella testing and all the other maintenance things. So it's not been abandoned. There are people going in there regularly to do all the health and safety checks as normal.
Yes, There were rumours that the heating had been turned off and all sorts of bad things. But no, thank you. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Emma. Councillor reports. I think Councillor Nightingale, thank you. I know you've been busy in the background for weeks and weeks.
Yep. Okay. Right. Okay, just I hope you can hear me now. Yep.
Yes.
Oh, good. Right. I've been basically doing quite a lot of work at following the sort of previous lockdown. We picked up quite a few people who we'd made contact with. Some people had phoned Jill because they were in a situation where they were feeling very lonely. So I'd phoned a couple of them, but there was one person who was feeling very mentally unbalanced, and she went to so I phoned her at home. We took her to the I escorted her to the lodge with Kay and had a coffee with her there. And since then we've done that 2 or 3 times, and we started taking her to one of the West Bay cafes as well a couple of times. And she's really benefited from that. And we had a nice email back from her saying she felt she'd sort of rediscovered her life now. Unfortunately, that was last week, and of course, now we've got the potential that she's going to have further problems in terms of feeling very isolated. I've also been doing some benefit advice work with a few people. And last week I was phoned by the lodge and asked if I could go and help someone who was having some financial problems with one particular benefit, who's also attending due to mental illness. So I went to the lodge and saw him and started to sort out some of his benefits issues. There were other people that I'd been seeing some issues. Fortunately, I've resolved at least one of those now, and the person's, I think I said before, this was a gentleman who I was asked to go, well, I'd agreed to go and pick his medication up for him. Then I went into the boots to pick it up, and was told that he needed to pay for his prescriptions, and he's always been doing that. And he then well, I paid for it on the card. I knew I'd get my money back anyway, and found out he'd been paying about £30 odd a month for his prescriptions. And I took one look, and clearly the man was immobile, and said to him, I don't think you should be paying. He said, well, I've looked at the records and I've looked at the criteria, and I definitely, I think I should be paying. So I said, trust me, I don't think it should be. So filled in the form, just got him to sign it, took it to GP surgery, and he's now got exemption for the rest of his life from prescriptions. So that was about £30 odd a month he's been paying. So there's been a few things like that. One other thing, when I went last week to the lodge, I found out that they're actually distributing food parcels for children during holiday time. So I think Jill was aware of that, but I certainly didn't know about that before, and it's a good point of contact there. So that's about it. So thank you.
Roy, what's going to happen to the lodge during lockdown? Is it obviously it's going to be operational, but for instance, the person you mentioned who felt isolated, what will happen about someone like that? I mean, I think probably we've got. I think the lodge will be open, but one of the problems with that particular person was that she felt how she was, and the first time we told her about the coffee mornings in the lodge, but she found it very difficult to. Well, she found it impossible to go on her own, so we actually took her the next week, and I think probably we've kept in touch with her by emails, and I think. If it was an issue, we'd deal with it in the first instance, I think, between us. Okay, no, thank you, Roy. Councillor Nightingale. I'm sure everybody agrees that you've obviously made a huge difference to some individuals' lives. Do any other councillors have a report or feedback to give? Councillor Scott? Councillor Matthew Scott?
Hello. Hello there. Yeah. I mean, we can tie this in with the TDC report side of things as well. Going back to the lodge, the change in minds, what Councillor Pennington was saying. Sorry, Councillor Nightingale was saying. Yeah, so I did speak with Steve at lodge regarding the school meals for kids, major contribution as well. Basically, they've done a massive and tremendous success. Apparently, based on the initial proposal, they're only looking to do around about 50 lunch bags a day. Maybe it was even considered for a week, but due to the amazing response and donations that came through, they were able to actually do up to about 500 a week. I think are we on our second half term now? I'm not having kids, I don't know. Are we on that now? General question. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, so they look like they're going to be very much tied over for that one. There was going to be some other bits and bobs. I just came back from a members briefing, which actually covers a lot of things that I can imagine DDC are going to be in touch with Town Council about, but it's to look into reinstalling the community hub, but it's not going to be as we know it. In a sense, in the full scheme of things, I think this time round, the government announced that there is no shielding per se, with this lockdown being a sort of lighter version. But they are basically, along with, I can imagine, our town council, going to be looking out to reach out to any of the community groups as and when needed. I think they'll be sharing those details very shortly anyway. With regards to that, basically, the only other things I can report on my end, unless there's any other questions that I can obviously get back to you on, which is we've done the speed watch with that one, with Councillor Joanna Cornford and myself. Quite surprising actually on that one. Did actually bring a lot of speeding on Minster Road. We did pick up quite a lot with cars going as high as 45 miles per hour. So obviously it's still an issue. These are particular areas where you are going into a town centre, you're going into a residential, and obviously we need to sort of carry on mitigating those. And I think that was about it from the top of my head. Obviously, as part of the community, I think, yeah, that was it. We also, along with other councillors, helped plant some of the bulbs for polio, if I remember. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all keeping busy, but that's what I've got off the top of my head at the moment. Bit of a scatterbrain today, and I would look to get a bit more TDC reporting back to you, hopefully in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I'm going to have to add that on that speed watch, we had volunteer Kay Nightingale, who has been very active as a volunteer for the Town Council. So thanks very much to Kay, because it makes a big difference. Councillor Pennington, sorry.
Thank you. Am I still muted? No. I just wanted to say quickly that trying to keep an eye on the shops in Westgate and how they feel about the second lockdown. They were obviously disappointed that it's happening, but a few of them had said we learned a lot of lessons the first time round. So we will try to play to the sort of support and the services that provided their best approach last time round. One of the difficulties is, again, people saying we just don't know how long this is going to last. We can do our sums and work out for how long we can survive at a certain level of activity, but it is the uncertainty which plays on their minds. I hope that where the occasion arises, that we can still encourage people to use our local shops, whether it's using takeaway facilities or working online and ringing up. I hope we can encourage people to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Pennington. Councillor Donaldson.
I'll try and be brief. There's a few things. The first one is the business forum, which is going like the clappers, as they say. At the last meeting, the forum, we haven't got a lot of people coming to the meetings, but there was a core group who want to take it forward and are very enthusiastic about it. And they want to establish their own brand, which is the brand of Westgate Town Forum, Business Forum. They want to do a survey of to all the businesses themselves. So as opposed to somebody from the council coming along and say, would you like to do this survey? So that the forum does a kind of bit of market research, and you know, can provide services to the local businesses. And the third thing they want to do is they want, because of the sort of catastrophe with the one-way system, they want to prepare a consultation paper preempting consultation from Kent County Council. They've also adopted their own, which were ours kind of thing, but we've handed over to the forum their own terms of reference. And also yesterday I met with Chris West, who came to the town, who is, because Academy FM are doing a thing called a business watch, which is that, I don't know if you see that, which is Academy FM Business Watch. So is that back to front?
No, no.
Okay, you can see that. Looks back to front of it. And, you know, he's, you know, Academy FM is a kind of a community radio. They're interested in supporting the community as making loads of money and doing loads of advertising. On another project that I've been sort of working on, I'm not sure if it's a project or not, but there's a little girl needs a bone marrow transplant. And they've been finding it very difficult to, there was a resident, Caroline Eldridge, phoned me from Linksfield Road. And they've been finding it difficult to get a match for a donor. So I contacted Kathy Bales, and she produced miraculously this wonderful sort of article. That's the little girl there. And there is an appeal, but it's on page 5 of the Isle of Thanet News. And also, when I was talking to Chris West yesterday, they're going to do a news item on Academy FM about the little girl, and also probably do, you know, an appeal. But I've kind of left that to them. The other project is St Saviour's Community Garden, where they've set up a community garden group, and they work very closely with the Sunken Garden. And indeed, they want to set up a community interest company, which is kind of like right up my street. So I'm on the group as well. And also in terms of, you know, child poverty, and I've been working with Our Kitchen. And Our Kitchen is who actually supplies the lodge. So Our Kitchen's bulk supplies, which are in Margate, you know, have been supplying the lodge with food products for several weeks now. And the great thing about Our Kitchen is it's a kind of an educational thing. As opposed to being handouts to the poor, you know, like the Victorians did, it's also education. And, you know, it's teaching people how to cook and how to eat healthily, wholesome food. And they've actually got recruited chefs, voluntary chefs, which provide recipes. So there's, like, that's Tarpadal. So the person going in there, they get all the ingredients, and that's the recipe on the back. I don't think it's but it's like, you know, there's turmeric, ginger, etc., onions, garlic, dal, and everything. So it's bigger than just, you know, here's your food pass, here's your tin of beans, and here's your toast. You know, it is about people being sort of educated in feeding themselves. I'm also involved in the Thanet Community Land Trust, which has indeed acquired 2 plots of land in Margate. Which is, you know, I mean, I think, you know, Westgate Town, with Westgate Town Council, in terms of us becoming owners of council houses, would be absolutely fantastic, but would be a long-term project, and after the break and things, it can be restarted. So that's it, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Yes, I think you get the Town Council Ambassador of the Month award there. That's brilliant.
Right, okay.
Just
I
to the other
cash,
councillors.
yeah, I take cash cheques and all major credit cards.
Don't spoil the image.
Sorry.
Councillor Scott. Councillor Dr. Scott, sorry, Hannah.
Right, thank you. Yeah, just a little update on the trees on Lymington Green. So I think I think I gave an update on sort of the fact that there was a couple that weren't doing so well, but in general they're okay. Some of them are doing amazingly. So some of the people that adopted them and then have been watering them and looking after them, they look absolutely amazing. So I think in November's like a good month to do tree care, and we said that we were going to swap over some of the trees as well. So what I was planning to do was sort of a few Saturdays in November, inviting people down to help them look after their little trees, and to revisit the adoption scheme to make sure that everybody's happy with what tree they're actually watering and if they've had any problems this year. But obviously that's going to be a little bit more tricky now. So I'll probably be doing it with just one other person, probably on the 21st, Saturday the 21st and Saturday the 28th of November. Although I just saw from the paperwork that the AGM is on the 28th, but I'm not too sure what time that was. It wasn't clear on the document what time the AGM was. So I'm not totally sure exactly what times I'm going to go down, but if I need any help, I'll send maybe an email round and let people know sort of a time slot that perhaps they could pop down, and then it would just be, one-on-one, because you're only allowed to meet up with one other person. But basically what I'm going to do is a bit of weeding around the sapling, bringing that back to bare ground, and then putting some wood chip back on, and possibly even looking at having a little fence around each tree again, and then swapping over those trees that we said we were going to swap over. So that's the kind of thing that I'm going to do for a couple of Saturdays this month. And then, as I was saying about the net zero conference that I went to this afternoon, that obviously that's my job at the moment. So perhaps in the future I can come and sort of give a little update on what TDC is doing to reach net zero. But I think part of the conference from this afternoon was talking about the town council's role in this, and perhaps I can assist working out some kind of plan. And it might be possible that I think it's been made clear that Kent will be hit very hard by climate change because of our drought prone nature. We're going to have very little water, really. It's going to impact our agriculture, it's going to impact the water that we use. We're going to have heat waves, and then we're going to have increased flooding and also surface water flooding. So it's all great, and the fact that we could actually turn back into an island, that's that is an actual possibility. So I think it's the message was that we need to do something, and we need to do something now. And if we can, perhaps it's now time for the town council to call a climate emergency themselves, that we call a climate emergency, and start to make a little plan about how we can start to reduce our emissions, and how we can improve sort of our impact on the ecological emergency as well, which I know Jill's already started doing that with all of the planting scheme, and the trees on Lymington Green and things like that. So I think we're doing quite well on those types of things, but we need to now start to think about our emissions and how we can reduce those as well.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, and also just to say, with regards to the businesses in Westgate, I just did a quick search. Westgate Galleria has now got a really good website, so you can still buy items as gifts or whatever from Westgate Galleria through their website. And I'm hoping that a number of other shops can do that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Scott. Jill.
Yes, I just wanted to add as well that I heard yesterday that the card gallery are going to do a delivery service as well. However, the card gallery is going to be doing deliveries as well.
Did it? Could you say that again, Jill? Because some of us didn't hear that.
The card gallery, I heard yesterday that she's going to be doing deliveries. The card gallery.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Yes, because I was wondering about that, how the shops would utilise technology to keep going during this second lockdown. No, thanks for that, Dr. Scott, because I just wanted, can I just ask you, how many people have requested that the Rowans are replaced?
So it was only the lady that came along that requested it. However, we did reply to her to say that we would do it.
Okay, so you pledged that.
I've spoken to one of the families that has a Rowan, and the children actually called the tree Rowan. And I discussed how we might manage this, because obviously we're going to be taking their tree Rowan out, and you know, they'll notice that it will be a different tree. However, they have got a big enough garden for Rowan to live in their garden. So I think we can manage it.
Well, that's good. So they're quite happy to put it in their garden.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Pennington. I think
clarification. Sorry, clarification. I think the Carc AGM normally starts at 10 in the morning.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. That's useful information. Do any other councillors have a report? Councillor Wallin. Have we lost Councillor Green? Yes.
Yeah, just keep it nice and brief. I am still involved in looking into ways of dealing with the post office. I've got the name of the regional manager bloke to talk to, and that's going on. So we'll leave it there because these things take time. Other things, I won't. No, I'll keep quiet on that one. I am already tomorrow. I've got my first lift to do because of the second lockdown, but that's life. So keep on doing it.
No, I know you've volunteered already with the town clerk, which is good. The more team players, the better on that one. And we've already have our dedicated address, do we not, Jill, for this second lockdown?
Yes, so we've got a dedicated email this time, which is help@westgateonsea.gov.uk. Thank you, thank you. Well, Councillor Green is coming back here. Yes. Councillor Green, did you have anything you wanted to say about Kent Fire and Rescue and their activities? Because I know there was a lot in the Calc newsletter about the extra things that we don't think about. We don't realise that Kent Fire and Rescue actually provide for communities.
Yeah, I can let you know if you wish. The fire service at the moment is undertaking a number of different activities as well, over and above the normal run-of-the-mill day-to-day service. One of them being Meals on Wheels, which they're doing in conjunction with Age Concern. They've also been doing prescription pickups.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Has somebody got a radio or something on in the background? I'm sorry, I struggled to hear that last bit.
Yeah, they're doing prescription pickups, Meals on Wheels service. There are people ready to drive ambulances. Again, the community safety's sort of taken a bit of a back seat, but we're still going out and providing home fire safety visits, bleeping smoke alarms, business as usual, assisting the ambulance on COVID-related incidents. Lots of ambulance calls, assisting the ambulance moving patients. The list is quite endless, but there's a lot of work going on. training's been put on the back burner in some aspects because of obviously social distancing, etc. And it's causing quite a few issues in the county, the same as it probably is with the police and the ambulance service. So.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. How do you manage that with the fact that the schools are still in? You know, how do you manage your social distancing?
Well, we when firefighters on duty, every time you turn up to a call, you're meant to be wearing face masks. There's face masks meant to be worn on appliances and on stations now. And the only time that you don't wear them is when you're eating or when you go to the dormitory at night.
Right.
So when if you're meeting a member of the public, they should be, at an instance, should be wearing a face mask, unless it's one of those ones where you turn up and it's a little bit sort of on the back foot straight away. And as soon as you get a chance, then you'll pop one on. But yeah.
Yes, it's not easy for anybody. Thank you, Councillor Green. Thank you very much for that. That's it. We will move on to the next agenda item, which is public right to speak. But we don't have anybody booked, do we, Jill? No.
No requests.
Right. Over to the Vice Chair and Chair of Finance. Councillor O'Connor, thank you.
Hello everybody. Just to say, we've got the normal reports coming through, which is our bank statements for everybody to review. You should have them all in your pack, which is of course the current account, the deposit account and the petty cash. We also have the list of our payments that have been made since for September, and we also have our reports that are up to the end of September. So we've got our detailed payments and receipts of reports, and as you can see, as we're 6 months, this is for a 6-month report. So most of our expenditure today is running either on or below target, unless we've prepaid in advance on something. So for instance, subscriptions and things like that might have been paid in advance. You'll see a couple of those going up slightly over, i.e. the community newsletter and things like that are coming through. So we're on track. I'm in the middle of just starting the forecast, so we will start to forecast on a month-by-month basis once we get the 6 months done, so we can see how we're going. And hopefully on that we can start setting the budgets for everybody. So so for finance, that's what we're doing. So I should be working with Jill, although obviously where we would have got together in the office, we're going to have to work out another way of doing it. So it'll probably be on screen like we're doing now. We get work done, bring it up and things like that. So we're going to have to kind of think differently about how to go about that, you know, to bring that forward. Obviously prior to this, I've been in and reconciled the petty cash with the clerks in the office, so they've been doing that. So it's kind of business as usual as far as finance is concerned, but we do want to get quite a robust budget in for next year. It's kind of tricky this year because of what we haven't spent and what we haven't, but we do need to look at things. Some of our expenses are still going to be ongoing. So if anybody has got any plans or things that they think that we should be including in the budget when we start sending things out, please let us know. But we also will need to know the costings and the things behind your thoughts, for doing stuff like that, because obviously everything has to be explained to the members of the public of why we may need to increase any budget lines whatsoever, especially as everybody's going to be really, really hit financially this year with COVID and things like that. So, it's going to be a huge impact this year, more than one way of doing things. So, and obviously, David's been doing a cracking job getting grants in. So has Jill have been doing that. She's one of the interests I have is with the Fixology group, and at the moment, until they get their own bank account, Jill has helped get a grant in for them so they can spend. And again, unfortunately, they've only just got up and running, and now that's gone on hold again. So it's a very up and down thing at the moment for all our residents for different reasons. So hopefully, you know, people can still manage to keep their spirits up some way. But it is very hard to think of things going. But really, that's all for finance and reports like that coming through.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Connor. And committee members, please do feed in to that budget because it's really important. As Councillor O'Connor said, this year especially. Moving on to number 9, the membership of Planning, Highways and Environment Committee.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can just receive those reports. Thank you.
Yes. Would someone like to propose them? Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Pennington, and everybody happy with them? Everybody agreed? Thank you very much. Yes, sorry about that. Agenda item number 9, the membership of the Planning, Highways and Environment. Councillor Donaldson has very kindly stepped forward, and Councillor O'Connor is proposing, and
yes, yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Dr. Scott. Thank you. And everybody in agreement that Councillor Donaldson joins the PH&E committee. Thank you very much, everybody.
I'd like to vote against though.
Too late. It's too late, David.
Oh,
I thought you were abstaining.
The planning committee looks forward to your input, which and thank you for standing in on the last meeting. That was very helpful.
okay.
Item number 10, the appointment of the legal representative, update for proposed community asset transfers. Jill.
Thank you. Yes. So as you all members will be aware, we did appoint a conveyancing solicitor to undertake or represent us with the community asset transfers from the district council to the town council. During lockdown, unfortunately, that organisation ceased trading. So fortunately, the actual legal process hadn't commenced. So the district council did agree that we can appoint a new legal representative. So I've put a report together for members, just to let you know that the previously appointed legal representative to act on behalf of the town council in respect of the proposed community asset transfers from TDC has since ceased trading during the lockdown period this year. The council therefore needs to appoint a replacement legal representative so that proposed community asset transfers of the War Memorial Recreation Ground and the 2 shelters can progress to conclusion. The fees that were previously paid to the district council on account and that were sitting with the legal representative have been returned to the town council. So that's why there's been a slight delay. I needed to get the fees returned, which we have done. So you'll see there that I've sought 3 quotations. So you've got Furley Page LLP, Boys and Morn, and Robinson Allfrey. It sets out there what their estimated fee is. Furley Page is estimating between £850 and £1,150. That doesn't include any searches, and there is an hourly rate thereafter of £325 per hour, and that is plus VAT and disbursements. Boys and Morn was £900 plus VAT, and the land registry fees plus disbursements if required. And Robinson Allfrey, the quotation I obtained was £2,500, which is their basic fee plus VAT. So there's a bit of a mixed price range there. So, I mean, it's for members to appoint the legal representative. But obviously, if you've got any questions, because I have had conversations with the conveyancing people, if there's anything you wanted to ask, I'll try and help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor O'Connor.
Have you got any preferences of speaking to any of these? Have you feedback of who's kind of been the most helpful and everything else like that you feel that would be the people that you could communicate well with?
I mean, Boys and Morn, I have had experience with them before, and they always seem, very contactable and approachable. Robertson Allfree, I didn't have such a good feeling from when I spoke to them. And actually that fee, I don't know if you could justify, that's a lot of expense for what should be a very straightforward transaction. So really, I don't have any preference between Firley Page and Boys and Morn, if I'm honest. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
Okay, well, I mean, for myself, looking at this, it looks like Boys and Morn for me would be the more sensible option, but that's up to the rest of the council to vote on it.
Do any other members have comments? Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I think, Boys and Morn seem to be, and also they're in Margate. I've dealt with Robinson Allfree, who actually told me once that if I'm not happy with their service, then I should go elsewhere, which I wasn't very happy about. Boys and Morn, so I'm not sure about Firley Page. I've never dealt with them before. So I actually would propose that we appoint Boys and Morn.
Is there a seconder for that? Are you seconding that, Councillor Wallen?
Basically, yes, I have had issues similar to Councillor Donaldson with the other one, so yes.
Sorry, Councillor Page, you had your hand up. Were you seconding or commenting? Okay. So we have a proposer, Councillor Donaldson, and a seconder, I think Councillor Wallen there. Is everybody in agreement with that? Boys and Morn. Thank you. Councillor Pennington, I'd
like to abstain.
And we have one abstention. Councillor.
I don't have much experience of Firley Page, but I would have a bit more confidence in what we're told about it. I don't like the fact that Boys and Morn don't mention searchers apparently. So, but I'm quite happy to go with the majority.
Jill.
Yes, just to add to that, Councillor Pennington, I have insisted that in any event we would have a basic search, which is £102, in addition to that fee, so there will be a search undertaken because that's due diligence.
Did you, Jill? You mentioned the land registry on there. I took that to be the searches.
No, so there is a basic search that usually costs £102. So that's what I've said to all three potential conveyancers, that we would that is what we would need for due diligence purposes.
Right. And that, yes, that would be satisfactory.
Yeah.
As you said, it's not complex, is it?
It shouldn't be. No, it should be straightforward
for all assets.
Yeah.
Right. In that case, it's Boys and Morn. Thank you. Agenda item number, and Councillor Pennington abstaining. Sorry, Boys and Morn. Agenda item number 11, the photocopier lease review. That's been taken off the agenda because with lockdown, it's hindered any additional research needed.
Yes,
to make a decision on
right.
that. Number 11, the Calc AGM on the 28th of November, which is why I was waffling on about Calc earlier. 2 members can attend. As chair, I would really like to attend. I enjoy the Calc AGMs. Do any other councillors wish to propose themselves? Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. I'm on the executive committee and I'm not honestly sure if I attend as of right separately from the 2 members from the town council. I mean, because I'm on the executive committee, I think I ought to be present, but I can check with Calc whether we still have 2 places. I don't know if Jill has any info on that.
We do have 2 places, Councillor Pennington.
Yeah.
That's standard. And if no other councillors would like to go, then is everybody happy? We have a proposer that it's the chair and Councillor Pennington. to attend the Calc AGM on the 28th November. That's Councillor Wallin proposed it and Councillor Connor seconded it. Thank you. And everybody in agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We just appear to have lost Councillor Hannah Scott, I think. She's not on the meeting at the moment.
Shall we proceed? Is that all right?
Yes, I mean, as long as we, what we'll do, I think, in a moment when she's back, because I don't know when we lost her. I don't know if she had an opportunity to listen to that vote or not. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll check that with her when she, but you can certainly start to discuss the highway improvement plans update. That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 13. We have a short list here that was put together by the Planning and Environment Committee. And I think Jill would be best person to take us through this. I would just like to point out that there are maintenance issues with some of the non-regulatory and safety elements of these highway systems that we would have to consider. And I would also like councillors to bear in mind that since the Kent County Council active travel scheme in Westgate, quite a few issues were thrown up on that, as we all know. And one of them that came out of it was the speeding traffic in Station Road and St Mildred's. So looking at that list, if you would bear that in mind, because that's come from residents themselves views. That's number 3. Jill.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so it does seem a long time ago now, but obviously back in March, the Planning, Highways and Environment Committee met and discussed a long list. This list was a mixture of ideas that come through from councillors and also where residents had contacted me, or businesses as well, with suggestions over the time that I've been at the town council. So I've been collating a list. That obviously we couldn't proceed with a list of about, I think it's 15 items on there. So it was debated at the planning committee, and then a short list was arrived at, which there were 6 points or projects proposed on that short list. Clearly, since the active travel scheme, there are 2 now that we know are no longer active at the moment. They're not going to be progressed. So you can see that on your draft highways improvement action plan, you've got 4 projects listed on here. The first one was the junction of Westgate Bay Avenue and Sea Road and Roxburgh Road, and this was discussed and potentially I think members felt that there could be maybe a roundabout or a mini roundabout which would ease the flow of traffic there. And it is a large junction, the crossroads, which sometimes cause delays for vehicles, especially at peak times. So what I did, I took this draft plan and shared it with a KCC officer to get some initial feedback before I brought that to you this evening. And his actual comment was that due to the geometry of the road, it's not possible to place a mini roundabout at this location. So his professional opinion is at this time, that wouldn't be possible to progress with that project. The second one you see there is Sea Road. And this is obviously the problem of speeding vehicles, which we're very aware of, from both directions. Busy area leading to the foreshore and gardens. And the solutions that were discussed at the planning meeting previously were traffic calming, permanent speed signage to educate, and reducing the speed limit to 20 miles an hour. So again, this is a comment from the KCC officer, his professional opinion. He said the cost estimate, the survey would be about £250 for each survey. Speed cushions cost £7,000 per pair. And a 20 mile an hour traffic regulation order would be £3,500. And then signs and markings were potentially estimated at £6,500. So that's just his, his professional opinion. They're not hard and fast costs. The this cost estimate does not include traffic management, which could involve traffic lights or road closures to undertake those works. So these costs, I mean, I'd estimated about £20,000 when I looked at the pack that I sent you all as well, which is really helpful. They shared it with us, the new Highway Works Request Information Pack, because it actually breaks down costs for different projects. So again, that would be quite a costly undertaking. And I know that Councillor Cornford said that the environmental issues from using some of those cushions, speed cushions, it isn't great. So I think that's one that would have to be considered very carefully. Station Road, so I put in there estimated cost between £5,000 and £7,500. And the problem is speeding vehicles from both directions, busy area for pedestrian shopping, and the solution could be to reduce the speed limit to 20 miles an hour. So again, the KCC officer said in his opinion, the surveys would be £250 each. The 20 mile an hour traffic regulation order would be £3,500, and any signage would be in the region of £3,000. So that was that one. And then the last one we had on this list was St Mildred's Road. Estimated cost between £17,000 and £25,000 was my estimate. The problem there is the wide road for crossing for pedestrians, traffic coming over the bridge with poor visibility. And the solution that was discussed at the planning meeting in March was zebra crossing on St Mildred's Road or pedestrian refuge island. Now, I did want to ask him a bit more information about that, because he didn't really make much comment on that. I mean, the one comment he has said is that depending on how you designed a crossing could potentially mean the loss of some parking. And obviously we know that can be contentious. So that's something definitely to consider if there was a crossing there. And obviously he then added that it would depend a lot as well on how close to the bridge, because obviously you need adequate sight lines. It might be possible to locate further up St Mildred's Road towards the Carlton Cinema, but bearing in mind this would result in the loss of parking. And also you have to take into account the buses as well. The buses have to fit in that area. And then he said that obviously due to the tricky configuration of the junction with Station Road, further road alterations might be required. So obviously he was just trying to point out that it might be more costly than I may have estimated. So, but basically all these projects would need to be consulted with residents and the community, because any increase in the precip to meet a cost of even one of these projects would mean, you know, it's a lot of money from the precip to meet that. So given the, you know, financial situation, I think for this year, it's not really advisable that any money is put aside in the budget, because we don't have any hard costings yet. And KCC have said that actually with the situation at the moment, there's a lot of schemes they're having to grapple with until March. So until the new financial year, they wouldn't be in a position to really work closely with us on any projects. So sorry, Councillor Dr. Scott, you just arrived. So I've just been explaining the Highway Improvement Plan, Action Plan, just talking that through with everybody. So yes, so this really was to bring this to full council, because the resolution in March did say that I'd be bringing the shortlist to full council. So this is the proposed shortlist. Obviously, if there are any other you know, projects or comments that members have, they want to add to this, because we've got 4 items on there. We clearly could have up to 2 more projects, or, you know, if anyone's got any comments. And I would, you know, advise that we don't do anything very much more than if we decide on 1 or 2 that we want to look more into, we could have the traffic surveys done and you know, meet the cost of those. But that's all I wanted to say really. And the Highway Improvement Pack is very useful if you have an opportunity, if you haven't already. It's you know, quite comprehensive and gives you a lot of information there. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I found it a little bit off-putting, some of the information in there. Councillor Matthew Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will certainly look through that highway thing, because I have big interests in all the little signs, and need to reset my theory. So hey, we kill two birds with one stone. It was coming back to see road basically, and it was just having done the speed watch there. I mean, I feel it's not necessarily a requirement that we need to reduce the speed to 20. I think there's just more education that the speed is 30. I mean, I've spoken to some people, and whilst I'm very aware of it, obviously after time, people seem to forget. So obviously street lights do actually mean the national speed limit, with that being 30 within residential zones. That's obviously not the case for some people. Have we ever caught well in the buff over 40 before coming down the road? And to be fair, it's not really clearly marked along the way. I mean, you could argue that that's down to the individual who should be mindful of their own speeds. But I mean, I personally feel we don't really need the traffic calming such as the speed humps and that. I think it does need to just have the 30-mile-per-hour sign sprayed on the floor. I mean, I personally myself had a conversation with one of our KCC councillors just to sort of have a discussion, sort of entertain that, to which apparently it's been brushed off by one of the officers as, well, you know, it's down to the fact that they've done traffic surveys there. They've not seen it to be a road that is contentious at this time, but it's always been the case, hasn't it, where it has to be a fatality or something along those lines, where it's a reactive as opposed to a proactive. Whereas, I mean, clear common sense would say it's by a beach, it's heavily used. I mean, you will have kids, residents, pedestrians, cyclists, loads of people coming in and out, and obviously with parking being the way it is, not everyone's particularly considerate when it comes to their own vehicles and parking. They want to get near to the beach because, you know, God forbid those extra couple of seconds walking could put any pressure on them. So basically, a number of things I've always felt was just really that could be a focus. So perhaps maybe we could strip some of that away and not necessarily require a speed order to be changed, but just to relook at that, reevaluate it, and just really look into markings, and just to reiterate that it is a road that's 30 mile per hour. That's just my suggestion on that. I mean, the others, I'm in agreement at the moment due to the current circumstances, and if anything goes by of what's happened recently with highways and obviously the one-way system, it seems to be any change certainly needs to go under the watch for every single resident. So we stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. So that was on, you're in favour of the C Road and 30 miles.
C Road with well, basically adjustments to.
Thank
Sorry?
you. With the roundels, that's when they write it on the road. It's called a roundel, apparently. Councillor Wallen.
Thank you. Yeah, looking at this whole list, the first one, Westgate Bay Avenue, C Road, Roxburgh Road. It's not so to put a mini roundabout in. The junction is enormous. You can put a full roundabout there. They obviously haven't actually looked at it, would be my first assumption, because there is plenty of room there and it should have a roundabout. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, it's a big junction. Going on to the next one, C Road. Yes, I've had several people say to me that it is, you know, a danger zone. People drive too fast along it. Reducing the limit to 20 miles an hour would probably have absolutely no effect at all, because people don't necessarily pay much attention to it, because it's a big wide road. It might be a 30, but a lot of people in the mind may well be thinking it's a 40. Probably not a 60, but people will be thinking lots of room, big wide road, and you know, not that many street lights on both sides of the road, etc. I haven't done the driving test for many years, so I can't remember the exact terms. But when you're driving along it, some people who aren't local may well think it is more than just the 30 because of the size of it. That's wrong, but they may well be. Something needs to be done. as to what you can do, reducing the speed limit to 20 miles an hour would make no difference because people would still just speed along it. So I don't know what the solution is unless it is to put in some traffic calming bits that reduce the length of the road. So you have to, go around a little island sticking out or something. That might be what it needs to be. But I know a lot of people who live there do mention it. For Station Road and St Mildred's Road, don't know the solution, but something needs to be done. If the one-way system was done properly instead of the farce that the KCC gave us, then it might be resolved. But unfortunately, what they did, it's made it worse. So that's why it got taken away.
Thank you, Councillor Walland. There is actually a problem with geometry at that Sea Road, Roxburgh Road and Westgate Bay Avenue junction. Councillor O'Connor and then Councillor Pennington.
Yes, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit with Councillor Matthew Scott, but for changing the speed limit down to 20 on the Sea Road might be a little bit difficult. But I do believe that I've mentioned before is those the cameras, that the speed watch things that show the actual mileage that you're doing. I think that always, just retention if you're going up and it tells you, and they seem to be monitored by lights and everything else, and it just tells you you're doing 30, you're doing this, or you're doing that, and they seem to work. You just think, oh yep, take the speed down, that and the markings on the road to say what speed limit it is. So the two combined I think would make a huge difference just along that period, to remind people that is the speed limit, and to remind people that when they come up and see something and they're going over it, it does make people come down a bit, so that's all.
Yes, thank you, Councillor O'Connor. They're on pages 40 and 41 of this of the document, the Highways Information Pack, and they talk about the speed repeater signs and the costs of £6,000 odd, nearly £7,000 for those. And Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Scott that if you have people speeding in a 30-mile-an-hour limit, there doesn't seem much logic in reducing it to 20, which they will also ignore. I think the problems along Sea Road actually vary quite a lot. I think speeding is much more frequent and more dangerous at some places than others. One of the problems I noticed, particularly in the area that I used to look at frequently, which was between let's say around the War Memorial and where St Mildred's Road meets Sea Road, is firstly visibility, and secondly people with young children trying to cross the road. There is all year round a stream of people wanting to get to cross by the War Memorial, and that is not always easy, partly because the road is so wide, but also because of the visibility problem. And the second is that the hedges along the sea side of it often obscure pedestrians who want to cross the road. So they have to come out from behind the hedge and behind a parked car before they can see what's coming. And I do think we should look at make people aware of the speed limit, but also try and think of ways of improving the ability to cross the road safely, which would mean zebra crossings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. I also know from one resident in particular, a handful of residents, the junction of Rowena Road and Sea Road, where they cross over there, is also very dangerous because the corner coming round from the Westgate Pavilion is a blind corner, and you can be halfway across and somebody whizzing round at 35 is an issue. Pedestrians are left running. Councillor Dr. Scott, sorry.
Yeah, so the plan looks really good. I think with regards to the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, Margate has done this. So you come into Margate and it's a wide road, and from what I've seen, everybody's slowing right down. They really are. They're really driving very slowly around Margate now and respecting that. And it's kind of, you know, it's almost peaceful along the seafront as people are driving so slowly. And then they've got zones all the way around Margate as well. So for the fact that what I've seen driving into Margate quite often now, it is working, then, you know, it's not a possibility that it couldn't work along Westgate as well. And especially kind of, you know, if people get used to it in Margate, then they might also then understand, well, actually this C road also is 20 miles an hour, and these zones in the towns are 20 miles an hour. So it might just start people thinking that this is sort of the way that things are going now. So that's a possibility that's been opened up by that. But one thing that wasn't on the list that we've spoken about before, and also is included in the parish highways improvement plan guidance, is that we could tie in with the neighbourhood plan. So on the areas of where there's high development, we need to look at the roads around that. And I think, you know, we've spoken about Minster Road a number of times, and the fact that Minster Road already is, you know, there's some problems there, there's some problems crossing, but also then with 2,000 houses added on, and the number of people coming out and then going down Minster Road, we're going to need to sort of have a little think around that area. And perhaps that's a bit more of a detailed conversation with KCC around what they think will happen along that road, and the pressures from the development, and how many sort of movements they think will come down Minster Road, and possibly, you know, what are the developers or what are KCC doing to make improvements along that road. So, you know, perhaps there should be really some money there from the development or from KCC itself to improve that road. And I think it'd probably be, I can't remember his name. Is it James Raitt that we might need to speak to around that? But Minster Road definitely is one of our concerns and has been for a while. So I was wondering if that could be added to the plan.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Councillor Dr. Scott, you don't think that might be something more in the future? We could have that as a suggestion, but it would be to the developer's advantage if they actually contributed to that, wouldn't it? That's almost in a separate section. I don't know what members think, but that's a future need.
Well, phase 1 and 2 are coming pretty quickly. I think that there could be a section coming over our side pretty soon from the developers, and I'm kind of thinking that on the line, instead of it being funded by members and town council, the funding part in there could be developer Millwood Homes / KCC, rather than, because we've got a line, haven't we, for who's going to fund these different things going across. So in that block there, we could say, you know, developer / KCC, rather than stating that it would be us funding it.
Right. So we'd push for that with the developers and KCC. Can we add that, Jill?
I know we've got that as a concern in the neighbourhood plan, that road, Minster Road, we stated.
Yeah, yes, you can certainly add that. And basically what happens is this highway improvement plan, once members have agreed it at full council, then I share that with the KCC officers, and they're the ones that put in stage 2 and the funding source. So I could flag that to them. If we add it, I can flag that to them that it's not the town council's intention that the funding source would be the town council, because we're looking to the future of if the developers are putting in new houses and there's some money that would be towards some highway improvements, and that's what, I can flag that with them to say that that's what we would anticipate the funding source would be from the developers and potentially Kent County Council.
Thank you, Jill. So could we remove the C road and because of the geometry, we can't have that mini roundabout. And then Minster Road with developers and KCC as a funding source. Is that how we do it?
If members are, I mean, I can add an additional, because I think we can have up to 6. That's realistic. That's what Kent County Council said. We can't have any more than 6 because that's not realistic. Because when you look at all the money that, for each project, if you're proposing that we're going to do these 6 projects, if it's any more than that, we're talking 20 years, to get the money. But basically, if members all agree and they want to remove the first one, the junction of Westgate Bay Avenue, on the advice that was given, from the professional highway KCC officer, we can certainly do that, and then we can add Minster Road as an additional project.
Thank you, Jill. We'll get back to that then. Just before that, Councillor Page.
Thank you. I see very clearly that the St Mildred's Road and Bridge will probably be maybe the most expensive of all of these projects, but I wonder if we could look at aspects of it to see what individual costs might be, because I have always had a concern about the safety for people on that bridge. It's that the pavement there is not very wide, and people do tend to use it to cross from one side of the road to the other. And that's everybody, including the elderly, where I've actually seen traffic having to be stopped to safely get somebody to the other side without being run over. And the corner near the fish and chip shop, I know with the recent experience of the active plan that was put in place and then removed quite quickly, that it hasn't helped the situation, but we do still have safety concerns there for people. So would it be possible to look at individual aspects so that we're not necessarily spending a whole piece on one project there, but maybe necessary health and safety aspects?
Thank you, Councillor Page. That sounds like possibly a traffic survey for that one. Because there's also the issue of no pavement on as you go up Cuthbert Road on the left-hand side there, so people naturally cross at the base of the bridge because there's only pavement on the shop side. Sorry, yes. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Yes, I support Councillor Page's comments. I think just because one particular solution has been rejected by the KCC technicians, and I share the concern about doing something in this area. I really think we should look at it more closely. It's been a bit of a difficult area for traffic. As long as I've been in Westgate, I remember early on there was a problem with a bus turning left over the bridge from Station Road, and it's never been put right really, and we really need to look at that very closely and not be guided too much just by engineering things, but sort of look at what the real problems are and try to improve access for pedestrians and safety for other road users as well. I mean, I should have thought some sort of refuge in the middle might help, but I don't know what the best solution would be. It may be that we need a good solution, not necessarily the best. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Matthew Scott.
Yeah, many thanks, Chair. Yeah, so just coming back to the St Mildred's Road. I mean, I'm just dialing back to when KCC put forward the active travel scheme, and it gave us all the road markings as to signage and where everything was going to be placed. Now, on the north side, as you're coming into the town on the hill, there was a proposed signage to, I can't really read it based on the old plans, but a signage either insinuating of a one-way system. I mean, basically, could we put in place a sort of crossing sign or to alert, you see those with the parent and the kid or the old person sort of thing, that sort of warning triangle signage I mean, can we approach KCC at least with that? I mean, clearly at some point they're able to place all these signage around for the one-way system. So there's one sign, obviously we can dial back to the costs either side of the hill just to indicate that there is going to be potential crossing, and at least allow people to sort of know that that is going to be something that's used quite frequently for school kids and pedestrians alike. If people get what I mean in terms of that, I mean, I can share the plans in an email back to the old one, the old one-way system, that will give a bit of an indication of what I'm talking about. And so,
thank you, thank you, Councillor Scott. I understand it that you're saying that you would have one of those signs with the older people and younger people on the social club side of the bridge, so that people coming over the bridge would slow down for the potential pedestrians that they're going to hit the other side of the bridge.
That's correct. Yes, so sort of coming in northbound, so based on geographical where we are. So I mean, it could work either side, but obviously the traffic coming from the Canterbury Road into Westgate tends to be the one that seems to be quite blind to turning vehicles from Station Road, and obviously those who are crossing the road. But I mean, like I say, it works as when I used to cycle from Margate, coming out of Westbury Road and turning right on to the hill itself. That in itself was quite dangerous. I mean, I found myself having to edge out as a cyclist onto basically the oncoming traffic part of the road just to really get myself around. I mean, at that point, I just get off my bike and walk. But hey, you know, other people may find it a bit difficult, and especially for those who might be just coming out generally and getting used to the area. So I feel beneficial on both sides really, and based on those two signages, that could be a start at least, as opposed to building a crossing.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, just quickly, I suppose if we were sort of starting to look at the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, then having 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signage as you're coming into Westgate to say this is a 20-mile-an-hour zone, then hopefully people won't be flying over that bridge. And we know that everybody's going to be, you know, driving much more slowly, and they get used to that in the same way as people have got used to driving more slowly around Margate, from what I've seen anyway. But failing that, I think it's a really good idea to have some signage to say, you know, slow over the bridge, people crossing, you know, people cross at the top of the bridge and people are crossing, you know, the other side. And I think, you know, coming out of Westbury, it is really dangerous when you're in a car. You think, you know, is another car going to be coming flying over the hill? And it is quite dangerous there. And that junction by the fish and chip shop as well. So all of these things, I suppose, need to be looked at. But I'm not too sure about sort of just throwing in the towel for the Roxburgh Road crossing. Fair enough, you can't put a roundabout in there, but is there a way of making that crossing safer?
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Yes, Councillor Dr. Scott. Yes, I did. I did think that was a bit rash, perhaps. And as the clerk says, we can have up to 6. I mean, Croydon Town Centre is a 20-mile-an-hour zone. I mean, if Croydon can do it, surely Westgate can do it, with the cyclists and pedestrians and families, school children. Right. Does anybody else have any comments, or is that it? That's it. Shall we make a decision on the actual on adding Minster Road to the existing list? We keep Sea Road, the junction of Sea Road, Roxburgh Road and Westgate Bay Avenue. I'm seeing a nod from Councillor O'Connor. Is that a proposal, Councillor O'Connor? Thank you. And seconded, is that Councillor Donaldson? Thank you. And is everybody in favour of keeping the list as it is and including the Minster Road funded by the developers and KCC? Is that everybody? Councillor Green, Councillor Pennington, Councillor Wallin? Is that a no, Councillor Wallin? Sorry, I can't see your hand. Sorry, it's a bit. Thank you. It was blending with the front of the screen. So if you, Jill, if you would add that, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of, there's a lot of choice here, and budget-wise, we've got restrictions. So how do councillors feel about having traffic surveys done to then for better clarification? Because a traffic survey is 250. I mean, is that a viable idea, Jill?
Yes, I mean, what I was going to suggest is obviously we're looking at budgets now for next year. Clearly, Kent County Council have got schemes and everything they're having to work on at the moment. So, I mean, I think if members decided that they actually, would like 3 traffic surveys undertaken on, for instance, Sea Road, Station Road, or 4, and then me and Councillor O'Connor can work on that and incorporate that in the budget if that's what members would like.
Does anybody have any comment on that? Councillor Matthew Scott.
Yeah,
and then Councillor Pennington.
A comment really, because I know that Sea Road did actually undertake a traffic survey not too long ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, maybe 2019, wasn't it?
Yes, it was at the beginning of 2019, and it was specifically up near the golf course.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, a question again, and you probably already have the answer for this, Jill, is there a way we can use the findings from Speedwatch? I mean, obviously it is part of the Kent Police. Does that hold any evidential grounds for justifications? Could that be used towards a speed, so to speak?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch all of that. Are you proposing that the speed?
All fade out.
Sorry, I think you're.
Yeah, no, the question was with relation to Speedwatch and.
Sorry, Councillor Scott, I think you've frozen.
Okay, can people hear me?
That's better.
Yes, that's
better. Have I frozen in a flat and green position, or is it like double chin? Right, can people hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, basically the question was is can we use Speedwatch as part of a evidential survey, really, or will Kent County Council do that?
No, we couldn't use the Speedwatch machine for anything like that. It has to be the recognised Kent County Council survey, and yeah, we wouldn't be able to use the equipment.
And just one final question on that. With the actual surveys, I mean, you say that was specifically done by the actual golf course.
Yes.
So, I mean, can we essentially have from the beginning of the golf course down to the beach? Can it detect that speed, or is it a certain distance it can only really flag up?
I think they would be individual, they're probably spaced along Sea Road because it is a long road. So I imagine that, because it does say per survey, so I'm imagining that, if you had 3 points along Sea Road, it would be 3 plus as 3 surveys, because it'd be three different areas of Sea Road. I don't think that they, do the survey from one end of Sea Road to the other. I think it is specifically areas, and that was undertaken at the beginning of last year because a resident had a specific concern about where he lived, and he was saying that there were lots of accidents, and that's why they did agree to undertake the survey. But it's not very common that they do that. So yeah, I think if we wanted to survey the whole of Sea Road, you'd probably have to have 3 or 4 different points along, so that they could actually survey each area, because you might find that near the Swan, for instance, it might be slower, which is what this resident was saying, that where he is up by the golf course, cars are speeding much more than they are down at the Swan. So, I think you'd have to be careful about, specifically which areas you choose, and something obviously we can discuss with Kent County Council, as they are the highway experts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott and Jill. Councillor Pennington, and then Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yes, thank you. I support the idea of pushing ahead with traffic surveys, because we are currently discussing very much on the basis of hearsay and without any real evidence. And I think the proposal that was made to provide in the budget for 4 traffic surveys is a good one. I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with regards to the surveys, firstly, with regards to Sea Road, we want them to undertake that in the summer months, because that's really where, you know, we're usually quite concerned about it. So that would be stipulated for that season. And then with regards to St Mildred's Road, that would be another good place to have the traffic survey. But some of the other places is not so much about speeding, but about crossing the road safely, even at 30 miles an hour. So we might want to choose the places where we're concerned about speeding, and then look at other ways of surveying the movement of people and walking and cycling in the other places. So this is why I was sort of just wanted to have a word of caution with regards to just sort of, you know, doing traffic surveys where actually it might be a bit more detailed about more to do with people movement and maybe cycling that we want to concentrate on.
Thank you. Councillor Green, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Right. Well, if we had traffic surveys in the areas that we've talked about, that would be about 7 traffic surveys, which would be £1,750–1,800. Councillor Pennington proposed that we do engage with traffic surveys. Do any other members want to support that proposal? Second it. Councillor Page. And is everybody in favour of us requesting traffic surveys in these areas to get more information? Is that Councillor Green? Are you in favour of that? And Councillor Wallin? No, it's difficult. This is the only thing. It's quite difficult to see on virtual meetings if you're not holding your hand up. If you, right, thank you. And that's 2 noes.
2 against.
2 against.
Mm-hmm. And
can we ask why Councillor Green's against it? That's not because, you know, why you're against it, but your reasoning.
Surely traffic surveys are well and good, but we should also be looking at historical data for surely KCC will have historical data, which we should be looking at first, on what type of accidents have taken place there, how many times people have had smash ups there, how many times people have been run over, how many times there's been serious accidents, how many times there's been fatalities on that stretch of road before we start wasting our money, I think, personally.
Thank you. No, thank you, Councillor Green. Jill, and then
I'm just going to advise Councillor Green. There is a crash map that Kent County Council have that anyone can access. So there is data that we can obviously get from that in the first instance. So absolutely happy to do that.
I can just tell I've never ever been to a crash on that stretch of road ever.
No.
So.
No. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Page and then Councillor Dr. Scott. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to refer to that crash site as well, but I would also advise that not everything is actually entered onto that site. And I do know from personal experience that there were collisions in my own road on a couple of the junctions only last year, for which the police and ambulance were called out, but they were never entered onto that crash site. So the data may be faulty. Just a word of warning.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Dr. Scott and then Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I know we knew that we were going to be discussing this plan and the finances. However, the proposition to spend this amount of money probably might need to come back to the next council meeting so that we have a motion on it, and then we have 3 days to sort of consider it. Is that unless it's something I wasn't too sure exactly how much money we're thinking of spending, and so that's the reason why I'm concerned about sort of going for a vote on it now. And I'd probably like a bit more time to consider that amount of spending.
Sorry, can I just add, Councillor Hancock?
Yes.
Basically, that was just a proposal for that money to be set aside in the budget. No one's agreeing to spending the money. It's just agreed that that money will be set aside and provision in the budget. So there's been no, we haven't actually sanctioned that we're going to spend this on KCC surveys. What we're saying is proposing to put that aside in the budget if that's the way that everyone wants to go with the projects, after we've obviously submitted this to KCC and they give us the feedback on the projects.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, this is a proposal to actually get money in the budget, as Jill said, to get started on this. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I was just going to say the same, to be quite honest, that not everything is reported. The near misses are not reported. The people that have run across have had to, move very quickly to get out of the way of a car, are not reported. So hence the reason. And I think, obviously some of these reports would be quite good because they might even come up with some ideas of what they think is feasible and what's not feasible, and, how much we can adjust what we want to put in our plan to it, so that, as you said, some of them are quite expensive, but we could cherry pick some bits and pieces and get some of it in at least, that would fit. So that's more for me.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Well, we voted on that, decided, and that's good. I've got a query on 20s. Councillor Dr. Scott.
Sorry, something's just popped up into my brain. So TDC are doing a cycling and walking strategy for the whole of Thanet, and that isn't looking really at traffic movements, but actually it's a whole strategy on how to improve cycling and walking within particular areas, so walking to work or specific roads, and that's being run by Sustrans. And I'm kind of thinking that this is sort of really what we're trying to work out. We're trying to work out quite a strategy rather than just working out numbers of cars and things like that. And so it might be worth contacting Sustrans, which looks at a whole strategy for an area rather than just counting the number of cars and how fast they go. So that was just something that popped up into my brain, which might be a better strategy going forward, because you pay them a certain amount and they'll look at the whole area that you want them to look at. Rather than us just getting data and then trying to analyse the data.
What would you say about that, Jill? That sounds good.
Yeah, no, happy to contact Sustrans. I've had some dealings with them previously, quite a long time ago now, but yeah, no, I'm happy to contact them and explore that option, absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Matthew Scott.
Yeah, it's just a question really. Am I right to understand that if we did want to submit any changes or request, for example, markings on the road, that a traffic site assessment needs to be in place anyhow? KCC, it basically insists on that having to be undertaken.
Yeah.
So to get the roundels, you have to have the traffic survey.
Yes, that's my understanding as well, that every project that's proposed, they do want the surveys to be undertaken.
Lovely. No, thank you, Jill. Item number 14. Don't panic. This is preparing for the future, 2021. Councillor Scott, Matthew Scott, has proposed that we restart the surgeries in the council offices, which of course are central to Westgate and likely to encourage more residents to come in and speak to us. We'd like a decision on this because it's preparing for the future. Councillor Dr. Scott.
Can I just ask, are we advertising any online surgeries at the moment? How are we carrying it out at the moment, and if if we're not doing online ones, is there any possibility of trying to do online surgeries?
I don't know about other members, but I would say that's definitely something that we could explore going forward. Generally, the residents who come to the surgeries are over 50 and aren't always experienced with virtual communication. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, sort of to come in as proposed the idea, give it a bit of background. I mean, obviously, while we all in the back of our minds, honest with ourselves, did foresee a potential lockdown. This was initially going to be for basically this month. I mean, the proposal was to sort of get them restarted. There's been a lot of conversation and discussion about it behind the scenes. Something that I did want to look into. It's just finding the right time. I mean, in answer to Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott's question, that is certainly something that I've looked into and sort of from my own TDC side wanted to sort of basically put forward. A lot of it would be though is if normally when you are putting out your information out there saying that people can contact you at any given stage, that's essentially how they see it. I think the advantage of the Saturday surgeries had always been for people, as Councillor Cornford highlighted, for the community who generally may not feel comfortable using emails, feel they get a better response by actually seeing their councillors face to face. And I feel a lot of people like convenience of being able to pop in, and it's happened before where we've had people just pop in the library where they stuck their head in, realise that there's two people sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Next thing you know, they have a lot of issues that they have unearthed. I mean, what I wanted to do originally was get it back into its sort of original state where I proposed it for every third Saturday. So not to step on the toes of our the first of each month, which is essentially where we have the Westgate Heritage. So we had some concerns and comments on that. And also, I know historically there were some concerns about a TDC councillor, such as myself, also being affiliated to a party and feeling that this could be a issue of contention. So what I wanted to do was also open it out so it would now be, while a town council with a TDC councillor available, but it wouldn't just be myself, it would be available to all our TDC councillors within the district of the ward of Westgate, and also our KCC councillors and also our MPs. So if they did have the interest to maybe sit in on one of our meetings, they can do so. But it just felt then that we could hit the nail on the head, ensuring that we are covering the Westgate side with the town councillors, but also meaning that it isn't just one district councillor of a affiliation sitting there, for example. So that was just my general idea. Obviously, the whole lockdown's put a massive spin in all of this, so we are looking now to 2021. But yeah, that was basically what I wanted to sort of get forwards, really.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Scott. That sounds really progressive and interesting. Jill, we're making a decision on this, are we? Beg pardon,
Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Donaldson, up there in the corner. I was busy putting my jacket on because I don't have central heating and my fire's gone out.
Oh dear. Yes, sorry. I think Matt's surgeries have been very successful in the past. I think it's a good thing to have them back. So certainly I'll sort of oppose it. In terms of other TDC councillors, KCC councillors and MPs in the area, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, they're all Conservatives. And I am obviously a member of the Labour Party. However, I do think that allowing local councillors access to you know, Westgate residents will be for the benefit of Westgate residents. So, you know, on this occasion, I'm not going to object. So I'd go along with that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. But that is a very, very valid point, because parish and town councils are non-party political. Councillor Matthew Scott.
It was just to come back on that. Yeah, it was just in sort of fairness and transparency, really. I mean, obviously there could always be by-elections, and those by-elections could take in any number of political parties. And yeah, we certainly have parties that are in groups call themselves independents. We have the members of Labour, Lib Dems, all that side. What I'm just trying to say is that any given opportunity, be it if I'm, you know, obviously because I want to just reiterate, it's not Matt's surgeries, it's the town council's surgeries. I mean, really, this did come from a previous councillor who unfortunately stepped down, and I wanted to put that forward. So it is the town council. It's something that I've always wanted to keep. This consistency was something that I've always wanted to just ensure that it was going to be undertaken. I know previously in the past where there's been issues with other councillors who might have had other work or other commitments that have meant that they weren't able to commit to that, a phone call would come my way, which would then indicate that I would either say, yay, I can do this, or no, it couldn't be. So I felt through consistency myself and then another one, but it's never to be that. It's never a host, because we can always admit that there's going to be times that residents want to talk to a certain person. It could be issues that only really, you know, to not genderify it, but a female demographic could deal with, or vice versa. But really what I just wanted to say was just going forwards, I just want to propose, if, for example, we do have another TDC councillor or another KCC councillor, even our MPs, whatever their affiliation they are, that they are welcome, and if anything, encouraged. I mean, it'd be great if we had our KCC councillors come to these town council surgeries, and even better, our MPs. But it's just, it's there. It's not to say that it is just going to be rubber stamped at town council.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I do think that you do yourself a disservice, because I remember we did surgeries prior to any other councillors joining us. Right. The point of this is the principle of restarting the surgeries. Are members in favour of the principle of restarting the surgeries when we are not in lockdown? Thank you, Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Page. Thank you. And everybody is in favour. Lovely. Councillor Dr. Scott, thank you very much. That's the final item on the agenda. Thank you to our clerk, and thank you for joining us tonight. Our resident has left.
Yes.
That's the end of the meeting, but I know that Jill's asked everybody to stay on.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, meeting closed at 20:48. So I'll just let me finish the recording.